Well, let's remind you of the breaking news we've been getting in the last few minutes. We've been hearing that the Israeli military sounded sirens in Tel Aviv after rockets were fired from the Gaza Strip. We're showing you some of the latest pictures we're getting in. Now, this is the first time that those sirens have sounded in months. It's still unclear where the rockets have fallen or if any have been intercepted. Let's get the latest from Hani Mahmoud, who joins us from Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. Hani, I believe we have heard from Hamas. They're saying they launched some kind of massive missile attack from Tel Aviv. What do we know right now?
Yes, well, so far we learned from the statements issued by Hamas, that's its military wing, Qassam Brigade, that they launched a barrage of rockets. And let me tell you something. Here we could see the trails of smoke from a distance here as these rockets were fired. But as look at some of the pictures that were attached with the statement, the rocks in fact were fired from Rafah, the eastern part of Rafah city, very close to the vicinity of the crossing. That's an area that has been under the Israeli military for the past 18 days. The Israeli military and its occupying forces on the ground has been operating aggressively in the area and made it clear that they are in control, and they have pretty much cleared the area from the presence of any militants or fighters on the ground or Hamas associate. That's according to Israeli statements. And all of a sudden we see now this barrage of rockets being fired from that particular area. It just put a huge question mark on these statements and the Israeli narrative of clearing areas from Palestinians fighting a group or having a military control. We've seen these patterns of narrative taking place in the northern part, in Gaza City, and more in Khan Yunis, at the eastern part of it, repeating itself over and over. The Israeli military sounded the sirens, as they said those rockets are going all the way to Tel Aviv, but as of now there is no clarity where these rockets landed. But we're waiting for more updates on the reaction, particularly as we read statements by the Israeli military talking about a starting tactical withdrawal from Rafah city.
Hani, this does sound like it's really been quite the statement from Hamas. As you say, it appears that these were fired from an area which Israel said it was in control of. We've also obviously seen much more intense fighting and ground battles taking place in areas of the Gaza Strip, especially in the north, that the Israeli army had said that they were in control of and clearly are not. What is the state of Hamas's resources at the moment? They're clearly wanting to have some kind of show of strength here.
You know, this is not the first time, Nastasia, we've seen these counterattacks taking place, particularly in areas where the Israeli military made it clear and announced that they are in control militarily. They have dismantled the infrastructure for Palestinian fighting groups and for Hamas associates or fighters, particularly on the ground. Just we've seen last night the video statements by Qassam Brigade where they said they have ambushed a group of Israeli elite soldiers. That some of them were killed, others were injured, and a group of them have been taken as in prison or as kidnapped by the Hamas, by Qassam fighters into one of the tunnels. And this particular area, this is not the first time the Israeli military has stormed the northern part. In the initial months of the war, the Israeli military operated aggressively after carpet bombing the entire area. Then the occupying forces on the ground pretty much got into every streets, every road, alleyways in the northern part, destroy its vast majority of infrastructure and public facilities, residential homes, forcing people into displacement. But as we see right now, the comeback of those counterattacks, and this seems to be quite effective, and there are evidence associated with them. The video statements of one of the fighters dragging one of the soldiers into the tunnel. The Israeli military did not comment on this video, but that's the pattern that we've seen in the past. Every time there is a statement by the Israeli military or narrative about them taking control, we've seen otherwise on the ground something that is is quite shattering the Israeli narrative in what it's doing on the ground and at what level, other than the trails of destruction caused to civilians, there isn't much really to talk about in terms of military triumph or prevailing across the Gaza Strip.
Hani Mahmoud with the very latest for us from the ground, reporting there from Deir al-Balah for us in the central Gaza Strip. Thank you, Hani. Well, let's get more of the perspective from the Israeli side. Now, Israel has banned Al Jazeera, so our correspondent Imran Khan joins us from the Jordanian capital, Amman. Imran, we're hearing from the Israeli military. They're saying, I believe, that at least 8 rockets were fired to Israel from Gaza. What more do we know?
Well, this is the first time that rockets have actually hit those areas around Tel Aviv and Tel Aviv itself in 6 months. We're hearing that sirens have been sounding in Herzliya, Kafr Shamiyahu, Ramat Hasharon, Tel Aviv and Petah Tikva and several smaller communities. So that's Tel Aviv and plus surrounding areas of Tel Aviv. We are hearing that there have been 8 rockets, like you say. It's the first time in 6 months that's happened. The Israeli ambulance service says that 1 person has been injured due to shrapnel falling. Iron Dome, the rocket defense system, has successfully intercepted all of those rockets, but this is going to come as a massive surprise to the Israelis, not simply because the Iron Dome actually successfully intercepted all those missiles. It generally tends to do that, but the fact that 227 days after the war began, Hamas still have the capability to be able to fire rockets. Now, also, the location of where those rockets were fired from is going to be of grave concern to the Israelis. My colleague there, Hani, saying that they were fired from the eastern part of Rafah. If that's the case, the Israeli army are supposed to have taken the eastern part of Rafah for nearly 18 days now. They're supposed to be in the eastern part of Rafah. It's supposed to be an area that they control. If that's the case, Hamas are proving a point here that they can still reach out to places like Tel Aviv and other smaller communities around there with a massive barrage of rockets. This is a big propaganda victory for Hamas, and it's of grave concern to the Israelis.
Well, I see that all airports have now stopped working as well, Imran, in the area. No flights are landing or taking off in the country. That's reportedly what's happening right now in Israel. This obviously will have repercussions in terms of the way that Israelis think about their own safety. Is this going to level up the pressure on Netanyahu and his government in terms of how they're conducting this war?
Well, that's certainly what Hamas want, and that's certainly the message that they were sending when they sent up this barrage of rockets. Now, there is precedent for all of this. Remember, during the 2000 war a couple of years back, Hamas actually issued statements to the residents of Tel Aviv. Between 8 and 9 p.m., we're going to send a barrage of rockets, say, off the streets. They were actually dictating terms to the residents of Tel Aviv. Whenever Hamas send up rockets, it is about sending a message. They do know that the Iron Dome defense system will get most of those rockets. Maybe 1, 2 may fall through. It depends if you can overwhelm the Iron Dome system or not. So it is about sending a message. It will put pressure on the Israeli government. It will put pressure on Israeli commanders on the ground as well, because, like I say, it's about where those rockets were actually fired from. If they were fired from a place that the Israelis actually control, then that's going to be an interesting thing, because this is going to be seen as a failure of the Israeli army. Now, all of this information is just coming into us. We have to piece together from various different sources. But just to recap for you, so it's 8 rockets, but sirens sounding in about 6 different places, including Tel Aviv. That's a very, very, very big attack.
Well, as we say, this appears to have come from the eastern part of Rafah. Obviously, there's a controversial, very controversial Israeli offensive ongoing in the Rafah area at the moment. You talk about precedent here, Imran. I'm curious about what's happened in the past in terms of Israeli response. Would we expect an Israeli show of strength in response to what Hamas has done right now?
Well, I can tell you when I was in Tel Aviv in November, there were attacks taking place on a fairly regular basis by Hamas from central and northern Gaza at the time. There was almost immediate response from Israeli fighter jets that were bombing targets in those areas. It's difficult to see what they can bomb now because, let's face it, their own troops are going to be in the eastern part of Rafah. So can they mount back similar kind of response without putting their own troops in danger? Will this be now a kind of much more of a ground offensive? Will it steal the Israelis into rejecting pressure from the international community to go into Rafah? These are all questions that we will see a response to. We will have an answer to these questions in the coming hours. Israel isn't going to waste any time in making a response because we've seen them do it time and time again. It's the type of response now. You've got a lot of Israeli troops in the Gaza Strip, so there may be perhaps those aerial strikes aren't an option, but maybe they'll just move them out the way, and that's what we'll see. Certainly there will be a response. It's just a question of what type.
Imran Khan with the very latest for us. We'll bring you more as we get it. Imran is reporting from the Jordanian capital, Amman, for us because Israel has banned Al Jazeera. We'll be staying on this story for you. For now, thank you very much, Imran Khan. Let's now bring in Akiva Eldar. He's a political analyst. He joins me now from Tel Aviv. Akiva, you're in Tel Aviv, so let me start by asking you what you've been seeing and hearing.
Actually, I am right now in one of the suburbs of Tel Aviv, Kfar visiting a relative in a hospital. And there was quite a panic. And I think that people at the beginning didn't want to believe that it's real. Maybe somebody by mistake pushed the button. Everybody was trying to get the latest news on the telephones, doctors and nurses. But I think that those people who pushed the button in Rafah made Netanyahu's day because this will help him again to play the victim. And who are they? The international bodies, the Court of Justice and the Criminal Court, to tell us to stop the raid on Rafah. You see that there is still a lot that Israel needs to do in order to ensure full security to its citizens. So it's not just the Israeli army is fighting. It's again, the Israeli army has to defend Israeli civilians.
Akiva, you say that this might have made Netanyahu's day, but this was ostensibly from an area. These rockets were fired from a part of the Gaza Strip that Israel had said that it was in control of. So the very fact that Hamas has been able to fire rockets from an area that Israel controls, that suggests that the Israeli offensive isn't necessarily going to plan. Is this not going to increase criticism of the way that Israel is carrying out this war?
Yeah, but this gives Netanyahu the justification to keep fighting and getting deeper into Rafah until, as he has promised, the total victory. There is a growing opposition in the Israeli public opinion to stop the war and to bring back the captives, especially after this video of the young soldiers, women. But I think that if we are looking to the domestic arena, that for Netanyahu is the most important, if not the exclusive arena that is relevant to him, it gives him some more leverage. And the calls to bring the soldiers back home and to stop the war were going to be more problematic and less popular.
Akiva, it seems like you're talking about political leverage. So this might bolster Netanyahu's political leverage in terms of continuing the war. But might this cause a rethink in terms of military strategy? Clearly, what Israel was doing in this part of Rafah, where these rockets were launched from, clearly that wasn't working.
Yeah. we know that the Israeli soldiers have been there now for almost 8 months. There is a fatigue, and there are going to be more casualties and more friendly fires victims. There is a debate inside the war cabinet whether Israel should think about the day after the exit strategy, or to let the army complete its job and get deeper into the tunnels. And the message that Netanyahu will be getting probably from the constituency is that, you must keep doing what you started until you can guarantee that there is going to be no more terrorism and no more rockets on Tel Aviv. This hurts Netanyahu's reputation and his prestige as Mr. Security. And inside Israel, he is losing support, and every attack is paradoxically getting the Israelis more afraid of the Hamas and less supporting the Israeli opposition guns that calls to put an end to it.
Akiva, I want to understand a little bit more of the dynamics that are taking place right now in the Israeli military establishment. We have been getting these reports that Hamas has actually bolstered its ranks. It's managed to recruit more soldiers over the course of this war. So in terms of manpower, they're still relatively strong. That they've managed to repurpose some unexploded Israeli ordnance that's fallen in Gaza, so they actually have the resources to continue this war. You referred to how the Israeli war cabinet has been trying to make decisions. We've been hearing about deep divisions within that war cabinet. Are those divisions likely to change the course of the way that military strategy is carried out?
Well, according to the American intelligence, the Hamas has still in control of 60% of the tunnels. So the war cabinet will not be able to change the tactics, and the narrative in Israel is that we have to finish the job. Otherwise, why did we have to pay the price of hundreds of soldiers being killed and hundreds of thousands of civilians that are uprooted from their homes? So it's like, we are in a catch-22 position, that you have to put more good money after bad money, or, living soldiers after dead soldiers and dead captives. And the division is not so much over how long, but what should be the deal to bring back the captives. There is growing pressure from the grassroots to end the war, because there is a growing understanding that the exclusive equation, is all the captives that are still alive, and I'm afraid there are not too many of them, in return for at least a very long-term ceasefire. And I think that Netanyahu knows that what we have to add to this equation is that this will start the countdown to the next elections, and this is what worries him more than anything else.
Akiva, we've been hearing from the Israelis that negotiations are supposedly ongoing, that there's going to be some kind of an indirect discussion taking place this weekend. However, Hamas is saying that they're not willing to engage unless they will be hearing about a long-term ceasefire. In your mind, what is the status of these talks?
Well, I believe that what happened today makes it more difficult for the Israeli war cabinet to accept the demands of the Hamas and to end the war, because this means that the Hamas is having the upper hand, that violence pays, and once they have launched rockets on Tel Aviv, Israel must retaliate. Otherwise, the Israeli society is not willing to tolerate something like this. Rockets on Tel Aviv, come on. So I think that, like we did see this pattern vis-a-vis Iran, when the Iranian attacked Israel, after Israel attacked their embassy, their consulate in Damascus, they retaliated, but Israel had to have the last word. And here again, Israel will need to have the last word, and we have to wait and see what kind of word will it be.
Akiva Eldar, political analyst there, joining us from Tel Aviv. Thank you very, very much for your time with us. Again, on Al Jazeera, Akiva, we appreciate it.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get latest news from Al Jazeera.